Welcome to Are You Down with LPT? I'm Kyle Clarkson, and I am here today with Jill Roghair. How are you, Jill?
I'm doing great today. Thanks, Kyle.
And I've struggled with your name for a long time. And I'm not the only one, right? But
No.
It's like Roghair.
Yeah, or if you want to go back to Atari days, Frogger. Remember
Frogger.
that game?
Okay, yeah.
Frogger,
So that's
Jogger,
easier. All right.
Frogger, yep.
Frogger. That'll help me make sure I get it right. But how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us. Congratulations on an amazing year. So
Thank you.
I want to chat a little bit about that, but maybe take us back. I always like to get a little history from people. Pre-real estate, what were you doing?
I'm a registered nurse.
Okay.
And had a love of hospice. So I did hospice nursing for 15, 20 years. It's a flexible schedule, so I could work evenings, weekends while Dirk was working full time and still be home with the kids. We also were foster parents, so that allowed us to be home a little bit more during that phase of our lives. So, that's kind of where I came from.
Was that? It seems like it'd be an incredibly difficult job, but did you experience that, or?
It is a very challenging job, but it's a very rewarding job. So part-time was probably the only way I could see myself doing that job with having a family at home anyway.
Yeah.
I needed a little bit in my tank, so doing that full-time pretty much takes up your tank. But there was a time then where the full-time nurses, in order for them to refuel, they would take 2 weeks off, and I'd fill in for them. So it was a great gig while it lasted, and I miss it. I still do miss it. But yeah.
I can imagine it'd be rewarding, but that would be a difficult job, not for everyone for sure. So talk about your transition to real estate a little bit, from going there to real estate. How'd that happen?
Yep. My husband and I sold our house, moved into a rental, anticipating getting ready to build. And while doing that, we had the funds of our house to deal with. And as a part of our retirement, we decided we'll start investing in some rental properties. Good friends with Mike and Brenda Klink, so they were our mentors for sure. They do such a great job mentoring people. So we bought, 6 or 7, 8 houses with Brenda, and she was encouraging me to get my license. My hospice job was kind of starting to trail off a little bit with what they were needing at the office, so I decided to take the plunge and do it, and had a lot of encouragement along the way to get that done with the Klinks and my husband. So. Yeah.
So they gave up a pretty good client.
Yeah,
I know. Real estate.
I know. She said that many times. And we go to the same church, or at the time we did. So she's like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah, losing some people there too, probably. Yeah,
but that's the genuineness of their heart.
Absolutely.
So,
amazing people. So we're lucky they're here as well. How long ago was that?
2018.
2018. So seven years already in real estate.
Coming up on that.
So you started as an investor, really.
Yep.
Kind of why you got your license, but it's transformed a little bit over time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of innate that it grew, particularly because of the timing that I got into the market with COVID, and things really took off. So once you start seeing that, and the fun of helping somebody buy a house is a little addictive. So so I started doing some Zillow leads to increase that business a little faster.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of addictive personalities in real estate, so you're not alone for sure. So you saw a lot of growth. I know your team name or company name is the Anchor Realty 515. Tell us a little bit about that and where that came from.
I've always loved anchors. I am a person of faith, and the anchor that Christ is for me is kind of where I center my business as well. So I know, I'm going to get the business that I'm intended to have. It can be whatever that amount is. I don't really care, but my anchor is going to be my faith. So I incorporate that into a lot of things in my life. But then I had a son who got in the Navy. So I was like, another cool anchor. Yeah. And it's just something that grounds me, because this business can be very chaotic and you're all over the board. But bottom line is, I'm going to do my job how I know best and what the talents God's given me to use. And if that means, like this past year, 10 million, then great. If it means 1 million, that's great too. So whatever it's going to be. Yeah,
foundation is important. So, it's definitely cool to hear that story. And you've got a son in the Navy. Is he still in the Navy, or is he?
No, he is out of the Navy now and just became a firefighter. So he's going that route.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yep.
Yeah. So, we look back at the last year, you had an amazing year. You're our top agent this year. As you look over the past year, you had some things going on. I know in your, personal life and professionally. I mean, you'd show up in the office with a baby, and so there's a lot going on. How did you manage to stay focused throughout the year?
Well, my family is my anchor as well.
Right.
And we did have that son who became a firefighter living with us during that time. So we have adopted through foster care to a sibling group, a brother and a sister, and both have chosen different ways in their lives, unfortunately, at this point, and Samantha was not able to be a mother to the newborn. So we were asked, because we were a safe place, that DHS would approve. And I don't know if that was the intended purpose of having Samantha in her home years ago anyway, how God works that out, but she needed somebody for that baby to be with that was safe. So we did that, and it was a challenging year for sure. Super rewarding. Charlie Rose is a beautiful little girl, and even though she had a really hard start, it took a village. And I think that's one of the things that having, my husband at home, our son who was able to help out, there were realtors that helped me with daycare, especially up front. In fact, Brenda Klink's daughter helped me out a day. I had to do an inspection, and that's not and you've got a 3-week-old, so you just can't leave them with a daycare at that point. So friends and family, of course, came around as well. I think that it took a village to get that done, and honestly, Charlie was a beneficiary of that village. So
she's 14 months now, is it?
She's 14 months now. She is getting ready to be adopted by a couple that is one of the dad is best friends with my son, Mason.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so we still get to be grandma and grandpa.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
She gets 3 grandparents, 3 sets of grandparents. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always amazing what God has in store. That's an amazing story, and appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
So support systems. I mean, you just told me about your life support systems. You got quite a few. Obviously anchored in Christ, and then with your family. I've met your husband a couple times, but seems like an amazing guy. And I know the Klinks, and I know Allie, their daughter. You got a lot of people around you. So you got a lot of support systems in life. But when you think about the real estate side, or is there support systems that you've had in place that maybe helped, especially in a year like this?
Well, and I think, as I look back, having a great foundation was super helpful. Yeah. So although Coldwell Banker ended in not a positive way, they did set a good foundation. Mike and Brenda were a great resource. I think that's probably one thing that I would say would be part of my advice to a newbie is just soaking it all up as much as you can. Yeah. I mean, I was like a fish out of water. Nursing is nothing like real estate. And so just being able to have people you can ask questions of. And so during this past year, you still learn every year. There's new things to learn. So it's just, having a culture here where there's no dumb question.
Yeah.
Hey, what don't you know? Let's work it out and get it accomplished. So.
Yeah, and so I'm sure, nursing a lot different than real estate, but we still deal with people in tough situations. Not quite probably what you dealt with before, but we deal with people that, there's divorce and there's, a loss and there's people moving up, so you it's a whole realm of emotions. So probably prepared you a little bit at least for that.
It really did. In fact, crisis intervention was basically what I did as an on-call nurse. Yeah. They'd call at 3 a.m. I am so thankful I don't get called out at 3 a.m. anymore. But being the calm in a sense of a crisis was great training for this job, because people are in a crisis. It's a big deal. It's not life and death, and I struggled with that a little bit at the beginning. People being petty over $100 over this or a warranty item for that, and it's like, come on, you're not dying here. But my perspective is a little different. So it is still a very big purchase, so it isn't something to be taken lightly either. So taking your client seriously is
there's a lot of emotion, and it's easy to get caught up with it. And as agents, we do have to be a calming presence, and just
it does help.
Yeah,
it does help if we don't get entangled into that emotion.
Because I don't know about you, but I've ran into agents maybe that aren't that calming presence, and
correct.
It makes things a little difficult.
It does. It does. Try to be level-headed.
Yep. So you go back to your training a little bit, back 2018. I think we want to talk about that quite a bit. I spent 3 years as director of education at Coldwell Banker, and it's a big thing what we want to do and why we started Elevate, and And you can, I mean, we were talking about it in our meeting this morning, like, oh, did that agent come from Coldwell Banker?
Yeah, yep, exactly.
And they didn't, because there's a difference in the training. And so we want our company to be that. And as new agents, yes, you need to jump into that. But, you talked about your relationship with Brenda. And, my encouragement to new agents is find someone like Brenda. Now, there's not a lot of Brendas out there, but to have a mentor in real estate's a pretty big deal, right?
It is. And I think that's the thing that we like about this office too, and this culture we have is there's many Brendas within just sitting outside, your desk or whatever. Yep. So I'm willing to do that for others. People are willing to do that for me. It's a camaraderie ship. It's a group mentality. It takes a village to raise kids. It takes a village to raise a realtor.
Yeah.
So, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's the mistake I made at the beginning, was not asking enough questions.
Yeah. And you have this mentality, but the abundance mentality, like there is plenty to go around. And, whether I do $1 million or 10 million or whatever that number might be, like there's plenty to go around. And we want people in our company, you're one of them and many others, that, have that mentality. Like, I want to help people because it's not going to hurt my business. It's going to help me and it's going to help them. And just a different way of thinking. So, we talked about support systems there, thinking about everything going on in your life, last year, and still to sell the amount of real estate you did, time management. So talk me through balancing all that.
I'm probably not the best one to talk about that, because there were a lot of late nights and then early mornings with Charlie. So, but again, having that support to be able to say, hey, tag, you're it with Charlie. I've got to do some work. And real estate is a lot of nights and weekends. My husband works days, so we could tag team a little bit better that way. Time management is always something to work on, though.
Yep.
You can always get better. You can always improve. Being willing to be teachable and learn different things. I mean, just this morning I was talking to an agent about a new system that he uses, and if I drop the ball on my drip campaigns or following up with clients, that's another avenue to use. So being open to new things and trying something different to see if it works better for you.
Yeah. And real estate's ever evolving. So the minute we think we got to figure it out, something's changing. You talked about Zillow a little bit, your business. You mentioned that kind of started with your own personal, building, buying rentals, whatever. And then you started spending a little money on Zillow. Talk us through, your sphere versus online leads, some things that maybe have worked well, and how do you mix that approach and all that?
So when I started, we were empty nesters. I had time to invest in the company, and I also wasn't the primary breadwinner, so I had some money to invest in the company. I'm married to a salesman, sells real estate under one roof, but his motto is you got to spend money to make money, and it's proven to be very true. So I started a little in Zillow and gave it that 6-month contract, see where we ended up. And I barely squeezed by making what I put in. But I knew I had things in the pipeline that were coming. So I thought, okay, I'll do it another 6 months. And, probably was over 25% on the next 6 months. So with the encouragement of my husband, because it wasn't my comfort zone to spend that kind of money. But I did take the plunge and went to the next level with Zillow, and it has always, it's usually been at least 50% return. So to me, in a time where the business, the market was booming, and I wanted to capitalize on that, building my sphere. And if it meant spending some money to do that, I don't know how long I'll do it. I mean, at this point, as long as it's making me money, I'll do it. I prefer working with people I know, of course. Zillow can have its challenges with the clientele, but I've also met some really cool people through it. And so it's just a matter of building I've had referrals from my Zillow leads. I've had multiple closings with Zillow leads. To me, it was a great way to increase my business.
I think there's a couple things. My story is much the same. I started spending, I don't know, a couple $100 a month when you could spend a couple $100 a month, 50313. And, I'm like, I'll try this thing out. And then I started upping my spend, more zip codes, adding to my team and all that stuff. One thing that always fascinates me is the people, like I don't personally work Zillow leads anymore, but like the people that are coming back to me and that are part of my sphere are people I met there.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned it, but man, I met some really cool people through Zillow and other sources like that. And there probably will come a time when your sphere, you could probably do 10 million without
Right,
Zillow because
right.
your sphere grows and, or you may continue to do it your whole life. I don't know.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. But it's I love the idea of lifetime value of a lead. So I can spend X amount of dollars on a lead on Zillow or some other site, and they may buy a house, and that's great. But then they refer, or they come back a couple of years later and they sell a house and they buy a house, and there's significant numbers in one good lead.
Yep, and there's also nurturing involved in that. You have to maintain that lead. I tend to do a personal touch twice a year, and then just the texts, emails, whatever,
Is that
postcards.
with people that have bought already, or people that are still kind of just out there?
I'll put even the leads that I see them actively working. I'll put them on my postcard program. I'll put them on. I do the magazine 4 times a year, just get a seasonal kind of touch too. And then I do drive-bys. I do a drive-by once a year, and I do a gift mailing, something that'll fit in an envelope once a year. So that's kind of what I've done. And it's all it's a bigger number because I just do everybody.
And so that could be someone you've sold a house to, or maybe not. You just met them, and they could be somebody you're anticipating.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So client experience, have you found your approach to online lead differs from the people you work with, or now you're just kind of like, okay, I met this person at Zillow, they're part of this, and every process is the same?
Well, it just depends on the lead. I mean, you get a pretty good idea right away if this Zillow buyer is going to be somebody that's going to stick with you and be loyal, or if they're working the market and just picking any agent that they can pick up. So if they seem to have some loyalty, I'll have the same back towards them.
Yeah, maybe your numbers on Zillow. I always work through 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If I get 5 leads, 4 of them I want to set appointment, 3 of them I actually meet, 2 like, hey, Jill's my agent, and 1 of them in the end will actually buy a house with me.
It's probably true. I haven't thought of that.
If you're doing that, you're usually pretty good on Zillow. I don't know if those have been your numbers or not, but we track that stuff pretty closely.
Yeah, I'm not so good at tracking.
Well, you track the ROI on it, so.
Yes, and I do track where my leads come from every year, just so that I have an idea of where I should be investing my time and money.
And you should. I mean, this is your business.
Yep.
Anybody that's in real estate, this is your business. And for me, I would look every year, kind of like you do. I'm like, okay, this is working for me. Why wouldn't I spend more money if it's working?
Exactly.
So it is important to know your numbers.
Absolutely.
Any adjustment in your strategy over time? You think about 7 years when you started in 2018. Anything that's changed in the last 7 years?
Gosh, there hasn't really been a lot. I mean, I've kind of set how I'm going to do my touches with my clients, how I'm, following up with them. So I just have continued. It's just gotten larger because there's been more people added to my sphere. But I really haven't changed a whole lot.
Yeah. Looking back this past year, obviously 2024 was a good year for you. What's one of the biggest lessons you learned from 2024?
That it takes a village.
Yeah.
I am not in this alone either, so that's a encouragement. I mean, I think probably every agent has got some form of independency that they have. We're not working under a roof with a bunch of other people in a cubby. We're out on our own, doing our own business. That's the way it was in hospice too, where I'm just out in the field all the time. So I think there's a draw to that kind of job, but there's also camaraderie, there's also leadership, there's also that village of people that want to help you succeed, and that culture here is just very evident. And I think that's a good thing to remember too when you want to be independent. Like, okay, yes, I do have people on my team too. Mm-hmm. This is not just me out there. I've got resources and help and whatever I might need.
And when we were thinking about, company-wise, what are we going to do? There's a lot of people, even at LPT nationally, that are on their own. They're individual agents just out there. And we didn't want that. I loved a lot of things about LPT, the independence, you talked about a lot of agents are like that. I mean, we're independent. Mm-hmm. We want our brand. And I wanted that for our agents. But I also, I don't want to be on an island.
No.
And I think you just said a village. People thrive in a village. And so that's what we want to create. So there is that independence, yet as people need support and want support, to exist. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yep.
What advice would you give to agents who are looking to build their business? We got a lot. I think last time I looked, we got over 20 agents probably within their first year in real estate, and some that have not been in all that long. So as you look, piece or two of advice you'd give them in building their business?
Yeah, there's just some actual educational opportunities that you need to take advantage of at that new agent, and that's following somebody, shadowing, hearing the conversation. You learn so much just by hearing, so coming to the meetings, super valuable. Learn a lot just by doing that, and then when you experience it yourself, you have something to go on. But then also just don't be afraid to invest. I mean, it has paid off. I know not everybody has the finances to do that, but if you do have an opportunity to invest in your business, you will not regret it.
Yeah.
You know, it'll definitely pay off in the long run.
That was the biggest shift for me when, I got in 2004 and I did okay, floundered around a little bit, market tanked. I tanked with the market because I didn't have a plan. I was just kind of out there doing my thing. And it wasn't until the second time around selling where I'm like, this is a business. I'm going to treat it like a business. And I created a business, and then I started paying myself, and I started having actually money I put towards marketing, and you start seeing results. And so that's one thing we got to remind ourselves of, but especially as new agents, like, okay, real estate is fun. There's some joy with it, but it is a business, and we need to treat it like that.
Yep.
What's next for Anchor Realty?
I just keep doing whatever God sends my way.
Yeah.
Relationship is probably the biggest thing for me. That's kind of my background, wanting to nurture, wanting to help. So servicing my clients well so that when they come around to wanting to do real estate again, they're coming back to me.
Yeah.
So just continuing to nurture, continuing to do servicing the best I can to my clients.
Yeah.
That's always what's on task for the goals for the next year.
You talk about so they come back to you. I mean, there's a sense when people feel cared for and loved in the midst of a transaction, like they do come back because they do know you care, and it's not just about the transaction.
And I'm 100% loyal to my clients, so it would be, I want to nurture that type of relationship where they're going to be loyal back to me too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it goes beyond real estate, right?
it sure does. There's life. Yeah.
Yeah, more important things in real estate.
Yeah.
Shockingly, I know.
Yeah.
All right, so leave us maybe kind of one final thought here. If there's one thing you want people to take away from your journey, what would it be?
Well, we've talked about it already, but just having that village mentality, you're not in it alone. That for me was a big deal. I'm on my own, doing my own thing, but I've got the support system behind me. And then don't be afraid to take some risks and do something different and spend a little money and see what kind of return you get from it.
Absolutely. Jill, appreciate you being open and honest, and love hearing your story, and I'm sure our team will love hearing the story as well.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Thanks.